I'm Kevin Hoare, and I'm here with the other Kevin Hoare, David
Yes,
Darnell.
yes, the older and less wiser Kevin Hoare.
You're plenty wise, and you have a better, nicer shirt on. Though mine is appropriate for today's show because we're going to talk about this. I'm not a biologist, but I vote Republican, and that phrase will never lose its weight. Just like Biden's laptop matters, that other shirt that I have that looks like BLM. It's just funny how you can buy a shirt. I know you can buy these shirts like in 2020 and 2021, and they just become more powerful as time passes. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How does the meme go? What's the difference between truth and a conspiracy theory? About 6 months.
yeah, it's just the lag time. Just waiting for it becomes conspiracy reality. Um, Well, speaking of conspiracy reality, we all know the fix is in. Our justice system is officially a total piece of shit. I said it. I said it.
It's the right word.
Yeah, there isn't another one for today.
No.
Hunter Biden has reached a plea deal on gun and tax charges with the Department of Injustice and Cover Up in Washington, D.C., and the Federal Bureau of Intimidation. Apparently conducted this investigation over several years. And Hunter Biden has struck a deal to avoid prison by pleading guilty to 2 tax crimes and admitting to a gun charge that could be dismissed. Under the deal, Hunter will plead guilty to these 2 charges. And then prosecutors also charged him with a felony possession of a firearm while using illegal drugs. But the charge could be dismissed if he successfully completes a 2-year probation. The first thing a couple people said today about this was, no way in hell you and I do even a tenth of what he did, and we're getting
No,
away with 2 years of probation and potentially a
no,
gun charge that's dropped.
no.
No.
If you lie on that federal background check, and I'm sure there's no liberals watching this show, but yeah, you got to do a background. There are background checks in every state in America, by the way. But you lie on that federal background check, uh, and I think for you and me, Kevin, that's 5 years and like a $250,000 fine
Yeah.
for you
Yeah.
and me.
Yeah, and that would be with far less evidence, like hundreds of hours of video and crimes and obvious financial improprieties. But the biggest thing is what's missing from these charges, not just what the penalties are for what he did plead guilty to, but the fact that there's nothing mentioned at all about being a unregistered foreign agent, influence peddling, corrupt foreign corrupt practices, violations. And then, of course, we know that in the end, all of this serves the purpose of protecting um,
The
President
big guy,
Brandon. Yeah,
the
the
big
big
guy,
guy. Yep.
the 10% guy.
Now, let's not forget, and this is a good point, that it does pretty much obliterate the credibility of both whatever there was left of Joe Biden and, of course, the Department of Injustice. There's 2 articles here which kind of make the point pretty succinctly, I think. One says that the sweetheart deal eviscerates his father's credibility because he claims that his son did nothing wrong. And his son just pled guilty to doing something wrong. And he never met his son's partners, and that it was Russian disinformation. So he's just a complete liar. The only defense he has is that maybe he doesn't remember. But you
Yeah.
know,
Well, there's plenty of video. There's plenty of video evidence to suggest that might be the case.
yeah, no, that's exactly it. So this guy said his son is the smartest man he knows. Then Joe Biden is the dumbest man I know. to say that.
Wait a minute, Joe. But wait a minute, Joe Biden knows Obama. Wasn't he the light bringer? Wasn't he the one who, when got elected, nobody'd have to pay their mortgage again?
No, he was Obama was the well-spoken, articulate
Oh yeah,
young black man that he
clean
ran
and
against
ethnic
until
accent free. If I remember correctly, clean and ethnic accent free.
Yes. We are, of course, folks, not coming up with our own description, but quoting or paraphrasing from the then 2008 failed candidate for the Democrat presidential nomination, Joseph R. Biden, speaking about the eventually successful Democrat nominee, Barack Obama. So, but of course, that doesn't make Joe Biden a racist, because you actually already was a racist. And we know that because that's what his vice president called him in no uncertain terms during a debate years later. So, so he already had his racist creds. And now there's a U.S. attorney from the Eastern District of Arkansas that has just come out and said that the DOJ has lost credibility over this case. And I don't think they're not going to get it back. There's no way you can get this back. And now, who have they lost credibility with? Apparently, nobody that matters to the Democrats. That's all I can figure. But this game ain't over. There are some pretty aggressive committee chairs in Congress, in the House of Representatives, one of which, the committee chairman for the House Ways and Means Committee, is moving to release to the public as early as this week testimony and evidence from an IRS whistleblower who alleges that the Justice Department gave favorable treatment to Hunter Biden and engaged in political interference in the case that was just settled.
Really?
And Jason Smith, Republican of Missouri, scheduled an executive session for 8 a.m. where lawmakers, 8 a.m. Thursday, where lawmakers are expected to vote to free the whistleblower evidence and testimony of IRS Supervisory Criminal Agent Gary Shapley from the 6103 privacy requirements that normally shield Americans' tax information from public disclosure. And so the game is on.
Wow.
We knew that they were kind of do this. And by the way, you know who knew that they were going to do this and said as much in an interview? They asked Donald Trump a couple weeks ago, before he was charged on 37 counts of doing nothing wrong by the Department of Justice, which apparently has a 500-year sentence. And they asked him, so what do you think is going to happen with Hunter Biden? And he goes, they'll charge him with something minor and let him off the hook and not charge him with any of the other stuff. Boom. Trump, right again, predicted it perfectly. He called it out. And of course, the media at the time says, no, that won't happen. They're going to actually prosecute him to the full 6 7. No, actually, Trump was right. Why don't they just say it? They could just start saying it. They don't have to like him, but they could admit that he's 100% right on that. And now this whistleblower testimony is going to show that the fix was in. And of course, we know the fix was in because today, behind closed doors, John Durham of the famous Durham Report is being questioned by Congress. But unfortunately, it is going to be in a skiff behind closed doors about all this, about what happened, which is that we now know from his report that it was a complete, should have been, criminal conspiracy to commit fraud and manipulate the 2016 and 2020 and frankly 2018 elections by using the Department of Justice to create phony charges, while deep sixing anything that was going on with the Clintons. So he came out, he spelled it out in his report. It's now a matter of public record, but there are questions that are going to be asked. And this article I just posted, it lists off some of the questions that will have to be answered. The only thing, of course, is all the stuff we're doing seems to go at a snail's pace. What is the old saying? A lie makes it halfway around the world before the truth puts its pants on.
Yeah.
This is what's happened in grand style.
Yeah. Well, it's a very common political tactic these days. The charges don't need to be true, but if they're shouted by a media that's in entire collusion with Democrats and the left, then it becomes true in the eye of the voter, or the mind of the voter. And the only thing justicey left in the executive branch of the United States is social justice and maybe some environmental justice. The rest of it is just it's not justice; it's politics. It's all politics.
Yeah. Well, and as we learned from the captive audience show last night from Kevin Dahlgren, social justice isn't quite social justice. Not the uplifting thing we keep hearing about. It's actually just Marxism packaged as caring about people until the system's overthrown. And of course, enabling people to do unlimited amounts of drugs in the streets of the city and kill themselves. But they'll be well fed as they kill themselves. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. And they'll have a new tent.
Yeah, new tent, well fed until they die. Well, here's coming back to this. What's going on with Biden? Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, who is a hero for what he does. They have really gone right at the teeth of the Democrat cover-ups and repeatedly dislodged secret documents that actually Republicans didn't bother getting revealed to the public. He's done this time and again, but he made a point here. He said the GOP needs to stop talking and begin impeachment proceedings. I think we're there or very soon, because of the stuff that's going to be made public is a perfect basis for impeachment. It is. These documents are going to get from the FBI that show that he was being investigated for two $5 million bribery donations from the People's Republic of China and from
foreign powers,
Ukrainians and all kinds of stuff. And then he said the Justice Department is not going to do anything about all this Biden corruption. So we have to take the brick bat out and clobber this guy. The only way, and by the way, it is much harder to withhold documents from an impeachment proceeding, as we know from when they were trying to, create these phony impeachments against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
The court rulings favored any information Congress wanted in order to conduct an impeachment proceeding. I say this might be the only way. And they'll say, well, you guys didn't like it when we impeached Trump. I'm like, yeah, but that was phony. That was just stuff that you guys conjured up and created and claimed was impeachable. This is like hardcore evidence of real high crimes and things that actually merit a thoroughgoing, on the record vote by members of Congress. They're going to have to take a stand after all this dirty laundry comes out. And he said, Tom Fitton said that, just deriding sweetheart deals, comparing it to a traffic ticket, talking about a two-tiered system. We have to fix one of the tiers. And this is maybe the only way to do it.
Yeah, I don't think House Republicans have the stomach for it, though. We've seen it in the past. It'll hurt our chance of getting reelected.
I don't remember Democrats worrying about that.
Yeah, why is it the Democrats don't worry about that? I guess because they have the media on their side. But we all know that it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you sit on or what letter you have behind your name. Your most important job once you get elected to Congress, be it the House or the Senate, is to get reelected. And I think that's most of the decisions, rather than what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is not good for the country and its people, are secondary to that. So I would be surprised. I wouldn't hold my breath for a Republican House to bring impeachment charges. But it's obviously like you said, the evidence is there, Kevin.
It's there, and if they were smart and did this, they'd also be able to do something else, because under Senate rules, if impeachment, and you can start the impeachment process and see where the investigation and the testimony goes, and put this constant pressure on them, which they can't resist. And I know the Democrats don't want their nominee in 2024 to be Kamala Harris. That much I do know.
No. It's going to be Gavin Newsom.
Who, by the way, must be somewhere in the Hunter Biden category of smartest guy Joe Biden ever knew, because he was just defending Joe Biden's health and mental well-being.
Yeah.
Either he's butt kissing, or he is totally a moron.
Yeah.
And I think it's
probably you got to admit, I mean, Joe Biden can fall down a lot and not break a hip. I mean, that's pretty amazing for a guy.
Actually, maybe he did break a hip, but he doesn't know it. The nerve endings don't reach there anymore.
Lori says Fetterman. Yeah, that would be perfect.
Yeah, that's right. We have.
I mean, it wouldn't be too much different than where we're at now, right? Except for
Harris Fetterman. Fetterman.
Oh, dear Lord.
Well, I mean,
how thin the Democrat bench has become.
It really has, and it's, as thin as the cover Joe Biden's got left. But there is one good piece of news. So last week there was a resolution that was in front of the House of Representatives in D.C. to censure Adam Schiff, who basically abundantly demonstrated that he was lying about Russian collusion and all the things that occurred with this. And he was the chairman of the committee that was overseeing all of this. And so that massive fraud that he committed, he was going to be censured. And part of that censure was to fine him $16 million because he caused a $32 million federal investigation into allegations about Trump colluding with Russia, which we now know is a complete lie. Now, Democrats get away with this stuff all the time, but I did like the fact that they were doing this. Unfortunately, some Republicans opposed it, and apparently the reason was that they didn't like the $16 million fine. Whatever. I think that censure him and then get to the fine later, I suppose. But it looks like now that is going to go through. And that's a pretty unusual thing, actually, to censure somebody.
Yeah, it is.
As bad as Democrats can be and as big a bunch of liars as they can be, it's rare that they ever get censured for it.
Right. Yeah. It's a big deal.
And I wanted to mention, actually, that Congresswoman from here in Oregon has changed her position on this and is supporting the censure resolution, Lori Chavez DeRemer. And so, I think if we keep pushing,
there's absolutely nothing wrong, by the way, with changing your position. One of the things I think we often, well, I mean, I'm not saying we often forget it, but I don't even think most people think about it, is things aren't always exactly what they are presented to us, in the media. Yeah. I mean, it's, you've got to be in the building to know the details behind stuff. And I've talked to, some of our own legislators about, votes they've taken and where they have changed their vote on the same legislation. And it's because of something that's not even in the media. They go, I'm not take that out or put that in or whatever the hell it is, and I'll vote for it. And that happens, and they do. So just want to throw that out there.
That's good. That helps people understand why it's important to provide your input, even when you're in the minority. And even when you're talking to legislators you think might not listen to you, sometimes they do. And that's how our system's supposed to work. When it breaks down, which we'll get to in a little bit, talking about the walkout, it's often because they choose not to listen at all, and they cut the public out of the process to be able to do even that. Now, just completing sort of the system of injustice that we are witnessing. Trump's documents trial, classified documents trial, is the trial date's tentatively set for August 14th. They expect it to be delayed due to various motions that'll be made, especially to suppress evidence, especially evidence that might have had something to do with attorney-client privilege, but other stuff, and also contesting evidence that wasn't even presented in the indictment, that was just alluded to, but they're not presented, so therefore might be immaterial. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to go on. There's some charges that might even be possible to move for dismissal on because of challenges that may go all the way to, I suppose, the Supreme Court, when you're talking about whether something should fall under the Presidential Records Act for a former president versus being a criminal charge that would be done for anybody who's not a president.
Right.
But the trial date's been set, but there's something interesting that occurred yesterday, in addition to this trial date being set, and this made hardly any news. It made some news, but it was considered a one-day thing that they moved on from, and it was this: Democrat delegate Stacey Plaskett of the Virgin Islands. So, we have territories and we have states, right? If you're not a state, but you're a territory of the United States, you do still get representation in Congress, but you're a non-voting member. However, you get to say what you want. And Representative Delegate Plaskett said during a live television appearance on MSNBC, or as Mark Levin likes to call it, MSLSD, she said she said that the former president having, quote, not only the codes, but now having classified information for Americans in Mar-a-Lago for anyone and everyone, she said, should be terrifying to all Americans, and he needs to be shot. Stop. He needs to be shot. And that's probably, that is pretty borderline on some of the stuff that, you can say even about a former president. And, but then she tried to backtrack it. She tried to say that she didn't really mean it. And, but could you imagine if, for instance, a member of Congress, Republican member of Congress, went on, Fox News or Newsmax and said that former President Obama should be shot? Would we be hearing about anything else for the last?
No, we wouldn't. And even if it were put in the correct context, and the correct context would be if, let's take Joe Biden. If Joe Biden committed treason and is found guilty of committing treason, then he should be shot. Even if it,
that's right.
I mean, that's the correct context, right?
That is what the law and the Constitution says. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and even if a Republican came out and said that, but of course their consultants wouldn't let them say that, would they?
No, they are not allowed to quote the law.
Yeah, right? Even if they said that, it would be a nonstop spin on the leftist media, and and it's just that stuff is. I'm trying to think of how to say it. It no longer has any effect, I think, on a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, have become numb to the political spin. I know that I have, because I sometimes read mainstream media and very occasionally listen to mainstream media television broadcasts, very occasionally, maybe not even once a month. And I listen to it and I go, man, and it doesn't matter which side, it can be Fox or it can be MSLSD. It's just spin. And I go, God, I'm really tired of this crap. Give me some actionable facts, will you?
Yeah, or at least when somebody starts spinning, use some facts to accountable, and I don't see that anymore either. It's just like, all right, Democrats call and they say all kinds of crap. It's all a bunch of lies, and then
Yeah.
he just says, that's interesting. Well, what do you think? And I'm like, this
Yeah.
is worthless. This is
Yeah.
worthless.
Yeah.
They
And then
said
you're
that Plaskett was guilty of most likely a Freudian slip, which is because as we know, it's the term for saying what you really meant accidentally when you were just trying to say something else. And
yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to cover your tracks. You got to call the fixer. And that's probably what the fixer came up with.
well, this is ironic too, because while she is getting this white glove treatment from the media that no Republican would ever get,
No.
ever.
No.
She says Trump will have his day in court, but called it, quote, propaganda, unquote, to claim that Biden's FBI and DOJ are carrying out a two-tiered system of justice.
Yeah.
Which,
well, even RFK wouldn't get that kind of glove treatment. He's a Democrat, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. So, as she enjoys two-tiered treatment by the same media that covers up for the two-tiered system of justice, she claims it's propaganda, but enjoys the benefits of it. Excellent. Well, shifting gears here, we have developments on the energy front. We try to keep an eye on this because, of course, if you don't have energy, you probably don't have civilization. And I still like civilization. I think we should have it.
I like living indoors in a heated environment, and I like warm food.
Yep. And indoor plumbing, that kind of stuff, all good.
Yeah.
Warm water.
Yeah.
But the president of the Western Energy Alliance says that every federal agency under Biden is going after the oil and gas industry. And he said it's very likely the result that if energy isn't produced in the United States, it's going to be imported from somewhere else because we can't function without it. He said he called it a whole of government approach. Every agency is in on the act, either defunding the oil and natural gas industry. In the case of the Bureau of Land Management, another BLM that's also pretty notorious.
Yeah.
They're saying you really can't do your project here like you could in the past. We're not going to lease like we did in the past because we're just going to protect the land, they say, from Americans. And then Biden signed an executive order that banned new oil and gas leasing on federal lands and waters. And the litany goes on because he said that we get about 10% of our oil and natural gas from BLM lands and from onshore oil and gas production. It's all federal lands that's taking place on. May not sound like a lot, but if you take away 10% of our production, it starts to add up.
Oh, yeah.
What the price of gas, for instance, goes up pretty dramatically,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 10% up or down on anything is a lot.
Yes. It's enough to dramatically increase the price, not just by 10%. And that's what we've seen. And so we know that they are actually intentionally doing this. What's ironic is that some of the Western states are beginning to see a shift in the winds. You'll see what I mean in a moment. California and Wyoming, and actually Oregon is trying to do this too, are beginning to construct long distance power lines. And it's in part because of increasing opposition to wind power. Wind power is getting a pretty bad name because, as it would turn out, wind power, also known as bird choppers, are in fact pretty much eliminating species of birds.
Those headless bald eagles are a bad optic.
Yeah, that's right. Decapitated bald eagles, not good for your branding. And so they're starting to forbid these wind farm projects, and instead they want to have power lines come in and bring stuff from somewhere else. So California and Wyoming are cited in this one example, but then just yesterday I happened to see an article saying the following: Oregon governor and members of Congress from Oregon call for a pause on offshore wind turbines. Joining Governor Tina Kotek is joining a chorus of voices, including tribes and commercial fishermen, urging the Brandon administration to slow down its push for floating wind farms off the state's southeast coast. So they're starting to cool to the idea of doing this stuff that they said they were going to do all along. And as they still shut down and try to impair fossil fuel production and usage, if they no longer can make up for it with things like offshore wind farms, which they say are the only thing you're allowed to do, then where is that going to leave us? Where are we going to get the electricity from?
Wyoming. They're building a new nuke.
Yes, that's right. So other states that aren't trying to destroy their energy grid will have to be the places that ship it to us. Pretty much.
If you pipe it in from a coal-powered generation plant in Pennsylvania or a nuke in Wyoming, then it's, by the time it gets to California and Oregon, it's green. Because the pollution's, you can't see it.
Yeah, that's right. It'll kill people there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Global warming only happens in certain places.
Prevailing winds go the other way. Who cares?
Well, and this is how nutty and serious the Democrats are, although there's a backlash, which is there's yet a second bill that's been passed by Congress to end the crackdown on gas stoves and countertops that the Brandon administration vociferously claims it's not doing, despite the fact that it is actually doing it anyway. And I know this is the lies, and so they're rebuking Biden's war on gas stoves. It was a bipartisan supermajority vote in the House of Representatives. 249 to 181 voted in favor of a bill that limits that prevents the Energy Department from enacting limits on energy conservation standards for kitchen ranges and ovens, and it bars the Biden's Department of Energy from prescribing or amending energy conservation standards on those appliances. If doing so limits the availability of certain stoves. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to say, we're not banning it. We're just going to tighten the standards so that you can't possibly purchase or even replace the gas stoves and countertops that you have now when it comes time to buy a new one. They said something here about like 90% of the current available gas stoves and countertops would not comply with the Brandon administration's rulemaking on this. Yeah. And that was after sorry, go ahead.
Government has been destroying all sorts of household appliances for decades. These new washers and dryers that you have. I mean, everybody raise your hands that think they're absolute junk, that they use half the water and they take 2.5 hours to do a load of freaking laundry.
Yeah, and they actually plan to do even more regulation those appliances, and people are getting fed up and sick of it. By the way, apparently 61% of American households, 61% more in many places, actually use gas to cook.
Well, natural gas is, United States, because it's so difficult to export natural gas. And because we don't have the ability to export natural gas in high volumes, it's dirt ass cheap, and it makes great heat, man. Just makes absolutely no sense. It's
quickly, and restaurants have to use it. They have to use it.
Yeah. You can't run 100 burgers an hour on electric grills or 50 pounds of French fries an hour and an electric powered deep fryer. You just can't do that. Plus, well, I've talked about this. You get rid of all the gas. You get rid of everything except electricity. Now we don't have enough freaking electricity, right?
Yeah. I mean, which, by the way, is still largely being generated by natural gas turbines across the
Yeah.
country, which of course is less efficient than end user gas that actually is like direct heat, or like the gas that you use in your water heater, or
Yeah.
your gas furnace, is like 90% efficient. It's only
Right.
60% efficient so you're actually causing more usage of natural gas and more so-called
Right.
carbon pollution.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's incredible.
It's a
There's-
religion. It's not
It is.
science.
Yeah. The climate church, we call it.
Now they passed another act, the Gas Stove Protection and Freedom Act, to prohibit the use of federal funds to ban gas stoves. They think that it might not survive the Democrat-controlled Senate. However, this is a great way to force that battle. Force it to the Senate. Make Chucky Schmucky Schumer, as Mark Levin calls him, block this. And because we know actually that guys like Joe Manchin and probably what's her name from Arizona will vote in favor of this, which means that there's a majority in the U.S. Senate, a slight majority that would vote for this. There might be even some other scared Democrats who start realizing that this is just a complete political loser for them to ban natural gas for any of its uses. And if it does pass the Senate, then we know that President Brandon will be instructed by his puppet masters to veto it. But I think this will finally put the lie to them that they're not trying to ban the use of natural gas. They hate it.
Yeah.
And I think an issue like that could actually damage them severely in 2024 in every election across the country, because so many people use it and like it.
Yeah. 60% of households. That's a that's a pretty substantial majority.
Yep. And in urban areas, it's even more, which is their voter base oftentimes. So
It is. Yeah. Natural gas is not, I mean, it's I think primarily centered in more urban areas. Like, for instance, we don't have it where we are. We would love it if we did, but we don't.
Well, they'll ban propane eventually too. They don't really see a difference between the two. They're just starting where they think they can get away with it. And
yeah. Well, the price of propane has banned itself around here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Ridiculously expensive.
May as well try to produce it yourself, right? So on the gender front, we've got some developments. There's two cases. A federal judge strikes down an Arkansas ban on transgender treatment for minors. It's puzzling, but yes, U.S. District Judge Jay Moody blocked or issued a permanent injunction on Arkansas's own law of banning transgender related treatments for minors, including hormone treatments, puberty blockers, and sex reassignment surgeries. The battle we've just had here in Oregon is going on in more advanced stages all over the country. And this guy, Moody, contended that the evidence has shown that such treatments prove beneficial to the recipients and that the state's ban had worked against their well-being. He said that, saying, rather than protecting children or safeguarding medical ethics, evidence showed that the prohibited medical care improves mental health and well-being of patients, and that by prohibiting it, the state undermines the interests it claims to be advancing. I don't know how a judge concludes this. I don't remember that, is he a biologist? Because I thought judges were pretty clear that they're not biologists, and they're certainly not medical ethicists, but they've made this decision.
Yeah. Well, it's Jeff wrote about it in his article. It's just the pervasive lie becomes the baseline, and of course, we all know that the trans church or the trans cult has sprung up lately, and trying to make everybody believe that there is more than one gender, and that somehow people are created or evolved, if you wish, in the wrong body. And I just don't think that's the case. And it's strange that it even went to a court You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's amazing that it to a court, much less that a court has competence to render an opinion like that.
Yeah, and kids, I mean, the underlying fundamental here is children don't have the ability to make those decisions. I mean,
Well, and in this case, it's very questionable whether parents should even be authorizing such treatments because it's irreversible and
it is.
it mutilates the genitals.
It is. It's I think if you had said 10 years ago, Kevin, that we would be having this conversation about this, and that if we had said 10 years ago that this would have it would have had to have been outlawed specifically by regulation, and that it would go to a judge and be overturned, I don't think anyone would have believed it. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
And I only talk about gender affirming care as a derisive term for the phoniness of what they've packaged gender mutilation and parental cancellation as in our state. Because all this terminology, and Jeff points this out in his opinion piece here, it's excellent. Everybody should take a look at it. Jeff Reynolds, by the way, a friend of the program, co-founder of Captive Audience, lives in Florida now.
Florida man.
Yeah, Florida man. And but he says that we should refuse to accept new terminology like gender affirming care or use nonsensical grammatical constructs like pronouns, insist on a actual return to normalcy. Promote the best traits of all Americans, values that bind us together as a union and a people. Insist on the best in culture instead of the basest impulses. That's pretty straightforward, and we're seeing the backlash start to react in that way.
Well, there's absolutely no compassion, and I would argue that it's the exact opposite. There's no compassion in validating and supporting someone's delusions.
Yeah.
There's just no I mean, it's like, did you see the PDX reel I think it was yesterday, of the guy by the needle exchange?
Flopping around in the street.
Flopping around in the street, right?
No
well,
plans.
it's much like going to him and saying, I support what you do here. I want to make sure that you are able to do this every day.
Thank you for exercising your bodily autonomy, sir. This is something Kevin Dahlgren talked about. They actually promote what that guy was doing.
Yeah, there's no compassion in that. The guy is mentally ill, obviously, and some sort of drug. I mean, that's not meth or fentanyl or heroin. I guarantee you that. Some sort of god awful poison he's putting into his body, and probably, combined
all
with a mental. Above. Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, and it's just not compassionate, to encourage that, to provide a validation for that, and to help him do that. I mean, it's just nobody would do that, right? Well, nobody would do that now. But are we going to have the same thing in a few 3-4 years, where we have people that are delusional like this, and someone has to pass a law that you can't do that out in public, and then a judge will strike it down saying that, it's the slope has gone like this.
I know the slope is it's not only slippery, but it's actually like this gradient now.
It's ice on ice, which I believe is the actually the slipperiest. I mean, that's one of how you measure slippery. It's ice on ice.
Yeah, and it's really much more towards an abyss. There isn't a recovery point where until people realize that they're heading into such a thing. I think that there are battles being fought, and here's another one. Supreme Court unfortunately opted on Tuesday against hearing a Christian college's challenge to a Biden administration rule that says infringed on its policy of separating residence halls by biological sex. I went to a college that did that. Totally fine. That's how it works. That's how it's worked for time. Now they're saying the Biden administration is claiming that this is illegal housing discrimination based on gender identity. And they're going after this Christian college. But for some reason, the Supreme Court has decided not to take this case. It did not explain its decision to not hear the case. though both a trial judge and an appellate court panel rejected the challenge, asserting the Biden administration rule did not explicitly address religious organizations, and that the school therefore had suffered no injury and lacked standing to challenge the rule. If that's a narrow way of evading a hot social topic, then so be it. But that means then the burden, I guess, falls back on us to keep fighting through our elected and also to confront the lawless and corrupt Brandon administration and its rulemaking, which is probably the worst thing of all, right?
Well, rulemaking is the worst thing of all across all governments, because rulemaking is typically by unelected bureaucrats, and it cripples people's lives. It cripples their life, life, liberty, and the pursuit of their happiness, for sure.
It does. Now, a little tidbit, if you want, I'm going to throw in some 2024 Republican presidential nomination news. Chris Christie, former New Jersey governor and declared candidate for the Republican nomination for president, has announced that he opposes bans on trans surgery for minors. Brilliant move in the primary. That's going to be really popular. That means he's a real candidate. A lot of us actually believe that he is just somebody that's going in and trying to get into the debate so he can trash Trump. That's what he wants to do. And he was always, to be honest, kind of like a super rhino. He could talk.
Well, yeah, I mean, he got elected governor in New Jersey.
Well, not just that, but he was for giving in and rolling over to the global warming cult when he was first running for governor. That's what he wanted to do. He's like, I'm just going to give in to these guys. And they're like, well, wait a second here. And we just had this discussion about natural gas. He already surrendered to that cult years ago. So am I surprised that he is taking this position now? No. But 55% of Americans in a June Gallup poll said that changing one's gender was, quote, morally wrong, unquote. So I guarantee you, of that 55%, a good percentage of them are Republicans. So, good luck with your candidacy, Chris Christie. I think we won't be hearing much from you, at least in terms of front runner status. Pretty much.
Probably not. Probably won't make any of the thresholds for the debates.
Yeah, that's quite likely. Well, let's just wrap up on our walkout discussion. I think people wondered what was happening. It's the news hasn't fundamentally changed, but it is pretty apparent, at least from a Oregon Capital Insider article, that at least a couple of Republican senators, Kim Thatcher, and then, of course, former Republican and current independent Brian Boquist, issued statements expressing disappointment with what they think Republicans got out of that deal. And 9 Republicans plus Boquist apparently have exceeded the 10 or more unexcused absences, but they're going to legally challenge Measure 113. The only Senate Republicans who have not crossed that threshold are Fred Gerard, Dick Anderson, and David Brock Smith. All from fairly conservative. I mean, maybe Dick Anderson is from a more recently turned Republican area.
Yeah, pretty close.
But Gerard and David Brock Smith are both from pretty solid Republican areas.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Fred was my senator for many years. And I know on the last walkout, he did not return when everybody else did.
Yeah.
He stayed out. But I think he's been out for medical reasons. So, as I understand it. Yeah, well, I guess it just, it boils down to how you view, this is what it boils down to for me. So there's a lot of yelling and screaming and gnashing of teeth on our team, like in the party, the county, maybe the state parties. But here's the deal. Unless you can convince senators and representatives, Republican senators and Republican representatives, that they work for you, the party, rather than for the people who elected them in the district, I don't think you have an argument.
Yeah. No, and we have to work at actually getting their attention and persuading them. It's kind of how the system works, I think.
Well, yeah. Well, when I ran for a House representative, a lot of people called me that were in the House. I won't mention their names. Well, I guess I could, but they called me and they said, I asked them for advice, and they said the most important thing is to know your district and represent your district.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't say the most important thing is to follow the Republican Party platform. And I helped write that platform. You did too. And there's nothing within the platform that I have issue with whatsoever. I'm 110% behind it. But the thing that we have to remember is that they do have to represent their districts. And even in heavily Republican districts like mine, you have Democrats.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure how to square that, but I just personally, it's difficult for me to say, screw everybody, screw the 35% in my district that are Democrats, and just, do what the Republicans want. Now, in my district, my Senate district, my senator did not return, has absolutely no qualms about staying out. And, but it's different for each person's district. So I'm not sure what to say about that. I know the big push now is to get the House to walk out. Now, the House has walked out before. You wouldn't know that by Kevin Starrett's, vitriolic hatred of Republicans. But, they have done it. And do I wish they would do it? I really do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a great cue here, David. That's a great cue, because actually, so a constitutional sine die is coming in. It's 25th. Coming on the 25th, which is Sunday. Today's the 20th, so there's only 5 days left. Right. And there is a bill that probably will come to the floor in the House very shortly, probably tomorrow, and it's a terrible bill. It might be the worst bill yet surviving, and it is House Bill 3409. It is a bill that started out as just a few lines saying they wanted to study like the effects of climate change and blah, blah, blah.
So one with 112-page amendment?
112-page amendment, which turns out to be taking all of the other climate bills that didn't make it through all the different committees and attaching it into one amendment and sticking it through here. And it promises, in fact, to implement a giant Green New Deal, and it's going to do it without people getting to have a hearing and challenge and debate whether or not they want this bill. It's being rammed through in just the remaining few days here of the session.
Right.
It spends a lot of money. It's going to do all kinds of big grants, but more importantly, it promises to manipulate and rewrite some of the residential and commercial building codes in a way that will disadvantage
everyone.
Like natural gas in particular,
right
in the crosshairs, because they want to force allow the rulemaking ability of the state government to go in and say, well, we have to do this and we have to do that everywhere in the state in order to meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals. And they're going to do it by things like doing what Eugene tried to do with an ordinance to ban it in new construction, and then make it harder, of course, for existing construction to upgrade or retrofit what they have now. And so they should be standalone bills, but it looks like this one is going to give enormous power to several agencies to just do this by diktat. And this bill, which I think is correctly described by the Oregon Citizens Lobby as the epitome of what's wrong with the process of lawmaking in the legislature, particularly the House. This is a bill that's just not going to get a hearing, that's not going to be scrutinized, that is going to contain all kinds of stuff. The public won't know about it until it all of a sudden gets dropped on them. And the Democrats know that it's a loser. We should kill it. We should kill it. And with 5 days left, state representatives wouldn't come anywhere close to the 10 days if they did. But, to your point.
Yeah, to my point. Will I call my representative and say, walk out? Sure. Am I going to call somebody in a D+2 district and say, hey, walk out? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they just need to do what little they can, I guess, at this point. And if someone's retiring, maybe they should walk out. What do they care, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, we saw that with some of the senators. Some of the senators, are sacrificial. I mean, Knope's never going to get elected again, right? I mean, the demo is changing so fast. Yeah, it's already D+7 or 9 or something. I think where he's at. I mean, he was lucky to get elected this last time. So,
it was a narrow win. I think he got in there by 500 or 1,000 votes. It was pretty narrow. And
but what I don't like to see is people on our team say, well, we need to get rid of them because, I mean, we need to get rid of Knope because he led the Senate back. Okay, well, you get rid of him, you get a Democrat.
Yeah, in that particular case, that's exactly right.
I mean, if a Republican can win that district one more time, it's going to be him, right? Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be anybody else. So,
no, that's right. By the way, there is one last set of bills I wanted to mention. Senate Bill 5506-1 is adding $100,000 of taxpayer money to study legalizing prostitution. Did the Democrats campaign on that one? I don't remember that being in their TV ads. I missed that.
I don't remember that either.
Yeah, and they also have millions in waste that they want to put in there, and the Taxpayers Association lists all these things out. In a state where we can't apparently afford to have defense lawyers for people who can't afford them that are citizens, they're going to spend $13 million for lawyers for illegal immigrants who are not citizens. Yeah, go figure. They're going to spend $250,000 on a failed streetcar in Salem. You probably know more about that than I do. And then they're going to they've got a bunch of environmental advocacy, something called Elvis training. They're going to support a pizza lounge. They're going to spend money on a crystal ballroom, on a comedy club. It's like this Christmas tree, this crap.
Wow.
There is one good bill. I'll just give everybody one good bill and we can end on this.
Okay.
House Joint Resolution 16, if passed, would give the Oregon House of Representatives the power of impeachment for statewide elected officials and the Senate to try and remove people from statewide office. Who could they be thinking of? Shanita Fagan.
Yeah. Well, after seeing Kotek on the pickleball court with Aaron Mitchell, could be as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, it could all come to a head for these folks. And that one passed a 22-0, I believe, in the Senate, or was it the House? I don't know. Doesn't sound like everybody voted for that one, but nobody voted against it. Yeah, so go figure. But it was very popular, and I think it's actually a good note to end on. Maybe there will be some impeachments.
Yeah, we would no longer be the only state that didn't have that power.
Right, one of 50. Well, great, David. Thank you for joining me here tonight. This is a great episode. We had a lot to cover, thanks to Washington, D.C. and Salem. But we will be back tomorrow night with another episode of The Captive Audience. I think it should be Sonny and Don joining us again and covering the next 18 years of news that will happen in the next 24 hours. And we will look forward to seeing you all then. And by the way, share the show with everyone you can. Tonight's show, last night's show, people need to see it. We're on Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, and of course Facebook. And I've been posting it to Telegram as well. So you can share it all from there. Please check it out, and we will talk to you again on the next Captive Audience. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.